8 years after we had started Noma and the Nordic cuisine movement, that at its core was about trying to honor and celebrate whatever grows here in our region. So we kind of adhered to the Nordic cuisine philosophy that never ever had been applied to bread.
After our conversation with Klaus and the mention of Noma, I reached out to my friend Francisco Migoya, who we are meeting now.
Welcome to Noma. It's good to see you too.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Come on in.
I'm curious to find out how one of the best restaurants of the world uses the power of fermented foods.
So I'm the head of pastry here at Noma in Copenhagen. Basically, my role is around the world of sweets in Noma. My previous job was as head chef at Modernist Cuisine in Seattle. My previous life was writing books, and now it's working in a 3-Michelin star restaurant.
How do you use all this experience that you have, and mainly related to sourdough, in your daily work here at Noma?
The world of fermentation is vast and wide. I mean, there is so many aspects to it that are applied to cooking, right? And some people differentiate, fermentation for bread and then fermentation for cooking, right? But we're basically looking at very similar mechanisms happening in both of these worlds, which is basically using microorganisms to make food become tastier, right? So how do you use that in, let's say, dessert? How do you breach, bread, cooking, and then pastry? Because it's not very frequently thought of as like using a fermented ingredient in pastry. Not that it doesn't happen. I mean, chocolate is a fermented product. But beyond that, if we think of, you use sourdough starter to ferment flour in order to make bread. But why can't you use, say, a very weak flour? Right, like a cake flour, pastry flour, that you can ferment. You treat as you would treat any sourdough. You perpetuate it as you would any sourdough, and utilize that to make, say, chocolate chip cookies or to make brownies. You have this flavor punch that you get from a sourdough starter that you wouldn't get from flour alone. So if you make some adjustments to the recipe, adjustments for water and flour, and you incorporate, let's say, a cake flour sourdough starter in a brownie, it brings it up into a whole different level. But beyond using like sourdough starters, there's other fermented products that you can utilize in pastry. For many years, I would say decades, I've been using just a little bit of salt in almost everything I do. And it's a very small amount, but it really helps to round out flavors. It really helps to make flavors stand out. And then I started to think, well, there's other things that have salt in them that are tasty that we can add to pastry items. Miso, soy sauce, garums. And I mentioned miso because miso is a fermented product, right?
You are making all these misos and these garums and these kojis. You make them here?
These are made here from the fermentation lab.
I work here in the fermentation lab. I'm on a team of 4 people, and occasionally we'll have a couple interns that help us out as well when the times are busy.
What's the importance of fermentation?
So it began as a method of preserving things and making it food safe, and then over the course of history you kind of discover that the flavor of the fermented thing outweighs the flavor of the fresh thing, so over the course of time very special things will develop.
Why is fermentation so important for a project like Noma?
Well, apart from the obvious flavor building principles of fermentation, there's also, because we are attached to a restaurant and we do produce food waste and leftovers and things like that, it's a way for us to minimize the amount of waste that we're throwing away. And it's not waste in that it's an ingredient that goes to waste, but it's wasted potential for us. We look at it that way. Finance team loves us when we create things out of little bits and odds and bobs and things that people are throwing away. They love us, and then they hate us when it's like, well, now remember all, like, from the black truffle, all the little ends that don't go through the slicer that we made a sauce out of, so we didn't throw them away. Now they really like the sauce in the test kitchen, so we need to buy in a few kilos of whole black truffles to make the sauce for the season. And then they're like, okay, let's not make a habit of doing this.
So what are the things you ferment here?
In the summer, we get a whole bunch of this fresh ingredient in to preserve it specifically to use in the wintertime. But then that evolves beyond the simple fermentation such as that into things where you're using things like koji, which is the key to unlocking a different tier of fermentation, where you're looking at misos and shoyus and variations of garum, which is a very, very old technique that we've brought into the modern age by using koji enzymes and kind of fiddling around with the aging, the temperature, the acidity, the ingredients. We have the luxury of so many different nationalities here at this restaurant that we can take inspiration from different parts of the world, and we have first-hand experience.
What do you have in order to steer or to inoculate, or can you elaborate a little bit on
so what we're standing in the fermentation lab, this is sort of the main room. This is where we have our hands on things. So we're mixing koji, we're adding scobies to kombuchas, we're cutting cucumbers to make lacto-fermented pickles from, and things like that. And then, as you can see on either side of this room, there's small hallways with what look like walk-in fridges. Only one of them is a walk-in fridge. The rest of them are insulated rooms where we have heating coils, a thermostat, and humidifiers. So we can set these rooms to a certain atmospherical environment where, for example, if we're making koji, we can set it for 30 degrees Celsius and 70% humidity. We'll have a lot of technological implements like thermostats and a monitor that allow us to artificially create these atmospheres for as long as we need them.
Well, I know that in Noma you do not make any bread, but the closest we can get to bread is, of course, you do experiment with some grains, with some seeds. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, so what we've got in front of us here, this is barley koji, and this is an ingredient that we use every day, every season. Every menu has this ingredient on it in some form or another. So in Japan, koji is made on rice, and this is the driving element of shoyu and miso and sake, where the koji produces enzymes that allow you to break down starches and break down proteins and create all these wonderful flavors. So being in Scandinavia and being in a part of the world where barley is a very prominent grain, we started growing our Aspergillus oryzae on barley. And so barley is soaked in water, and then it's steamed. And then once it cools down a little bit, we'll inoculate it. We get the spores from our friends in Japan, and then it's 48 hours, and then it comes out looking like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
For me, it has nutty flavors. Totally something I do not expect from barley.
From barley, yeah.
Wow. So when I entered in the fermentation lab, I saw this hand. So who is it and why is it there?
Yeah, so that's Dave Zilber's right hand. He did this on his last day. And he was the director of fermentation when we moved to this new space in Noma 2.0. He was a long-standing staff member of Noma. And this is kind of like a wall of fame for past employees who have done great things here and then gone to move on. And the fact that I've been here 6 years and his is the only handprint that I've seen up there is a testament to the staying power of people who work in this room, is that he's the only one who's left.
Talking about David Zilber, we now have the unique opportunity to join him in his lab at Novonesis, where he keeps unlocking the secrets of fermentation to find new solutions for sustainability and health.
When I came down to the Sourdough Institute and I got to spend some time with your colleagues in R&D, they were showing me some things that Puritos was working on that really sparked some ideas for me. Sprouted grains.
Okay.
And then in my own research, for some of the things I'm working on, I discovered papers about the nutritional effects of not just sourdough bread, but sourdough bread made with sprouted grains.
Okay.
It seems like using sprouted grains in bread or malted grains is one of the best ways to make sourdough. One of the things that has the most outsized effects on your gut's health.
Okay.
So I wanted to riff on that, but also using what I knew. I made amazake sourdough here. Amazake is koji grown on grains, so either rice, like it would traditionally be done if you were to make sake, mixed with fresh rice. Add some water and hold it warm at the peak of enzymatic activity for about 12 hours or overnight.
Okay.
You end up with a very sweet rice porridge, or kind of sweet sake, if you will, amazake. The enzymes are all very active, and you have amylases that break starch into sugars, you have proteases that make the rice a little bit umami rich, but you can take that product and use it as part of the hydration in a sourdough. And so that's exactly what I've done here. So I've done this on barley because we're here in Northern Europe, in Copenhagen, in Denmark. using something that's local to me. It's been retarded in the fridge overnight, and it's come back up to room temperature now. So we'll flip these over and put them in the oven. Voila. Not bad, not bad.
Like, they're gonna be fine.
Great.
While waiting for the bread to bake, David shows us how to make miso with sourdough wheat bread, also inoculated with the aspergillus and then fermented with water and salt.
You can see that this has just become a paste. And you know, when you find like professionally made misos, they get blended again after this stage. But even just raw out of the container.
I can try now.
Yep.
There's so much going on.
I'm just watching the gears working in your mind, and just like everything
so
you've ever
much
tasted
going on.
coming up in this ferment. It's impressive, huh? How often does stale bread, old moldy bread, spark this much joy? Bell's ringing.
Let's have a look.
Should be ready. Look at that.
The color is nice.
Yeah,
That's okay.
that's good.
That's okay. That will be okay.
Hot. Oh, it's still super moist. Oof. Wow, what a smell. You do get these little bursts of like, I almost want to say like cantaloupe.
Uh-huh.
Like this almost like melon, this like fruity melon quality to it. That isn't localized to just like when you chew on the grains, but it seems to have permeated the entire dough.
What would you eat with it?
I would turn this into like sourdough miso French toast. Take the miso, soak it in some eggs, fry it up, whisk it into some butter, smear that on top. Cheers. Amazake sourdough miso French toast.
So, there's a smile on my face.
Damn.
This is instant happiness. Woohoo! Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for coming by.
It is time to go back to the Sourdough Library. It has been an amazing quest finding how sourdough in Denmark is so deeply entwined to tradition and story, while also contributing to innovation and a new spin on things for a healthier and more sustainable future. For now, we'll make sure that Henrik's sourdough number 76 is well kept in the Sourdough Library, preserving all this wealth of history and heritage for generations to come.